How about this for a dark-leaved foliage plant? Isn't that a beauty? And would you believe this is a sweet potato, of all things? This is one of the dark-leaved forms of sweet potato. There are a few. They vary in their leaf shape and in the coloration, but this is just about as dark as they get. And I think that makes a really attractive foliage plant. Of course, this will only be a summer flowering plant. It's not winter hardy. In the winter it would die down to the tubers, the sweet potato tubers that of course we cook and eat. I've got this plant currently growing in a clay pot, but you could plant it in the garden for the summer. You could even grow it in your vegetable plot as well, of course. It will grow happily with the other green leaf sweet potatoes or the other vegetables. But this one for me is certainly decorative enough to include in the summer garden and to put in a nice arrangement on the patio with other foliage plants. Sweet potatoes are actually morning glories. They are part of the morning glory family, the genus Ipomoea, and it's just that these particular ones produce tubers, and we know them better as tuberous plants that we can eat. But they do climb. These plants do get up to quite a height, and they do climb and scramble about. They are effectively vines, and they do flower. If you get a good summer and they grow large enough, you'll get those familiar tubular and actually really rather attractive morning glory flowers. I'm going to pot it into a larger pot. This pot is not large enough, simply because it's going to produce tubers. It's going to produce sweet potatoes. So I would like it to produce as many as possible so that I could do some propagation from those in the spring. But I can also take some cuttings from this plant, and that's what I'm going to do now. Here's another little bit of trivia for you. When is a plant cutting not a cutting? Well, the answer is when it's a sweet potato cutting, because for some reason they call it a slip. I don't know whose bright idea that was, calling it a slip. But anyway, to me it's still a cutting, so for the rest of this video I'm going to call it a cutting. So to take the cutting, I'm going to leave the central stem, and then I'm going to remove some of these side shoots. So we just go in low with the scissors. And there's our cutting. Sweet potato cuttings root really easily in just a cup of water. Nothing more complicated than that. So I've got 1 cup of plain water. This is plain old tap water. But don't fill the cup all the way up to the top, because when we remove the lower leaves of the cutting and we place the cutting in the cup, we don't want any of the leaves to be under the water. We just want the lower part of the stem to be in the water. So keep an eye on the water level. So just removing the lower leaves, just simply pulling them off. And I'm going to aim to have 3 to 4 leaves on the cutting. So that one is now ready, and that can be placed into the water in the cup, and that's all there is to it. Now I'm going to place this in a bright windowsill. And after just 7 days, we've got really lovely, abundant root growth. Look at that. So you can expect to see the first roots forming in about 3 to 4 days. And after approximately 7 to 10 days, you could expect roots like these. So these cuttings can now be potted individually into pots of compost for growing on. And there we are, the first two that I've potted on. I've decided to put them into some pots for now. These are just plastic pots, and I'm using a soil-based general purpose compost. But you could of course plant these straight into the garden, straight into soil if you wish, but I'm going to keep them potted because I want to use them for decorative purposes. If you wanted to grow them for the actual sweet potatoes, for the tubers, they would have to go into much larger pots. But you don't have to put them into really large pots straight away. You can start them off in small pots like this and then put them into larger pots over a period of time as they grow larger. And I will be growing a couple for the purpose of producing the sweet potatoes, and so I will produce another video at the end of the season and update you with how that turned out.